take public comment at the beginning of our meeting or before, the public comment, whatever the subject is, before we get to that subject. And so we decided to wait, for the request and have public comment now before we get to the center. So, input?
Yep, come on
You
up.
can come up. Where's the?
Where's that? It's about. Yay. Leaders here.
Yes, and, I ask that you limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes, so I'll cut you off.
I will do my very best. Okay. Madam Chair, appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tim Hood. I am the superintendent of the Sidney, South Page, and East Mills Community School District. And I'm here representing the Sidney Community School. I ended up, hopefully you all got the response stuff that was sent to you, that we put together. First and foremost, this is an emotional situation and an issue, and that we understand that. I'm from a school that no longer exists. It's been part of Southern Cal School Districts now for a few years as well. So went through that growing up. There's always going to be an argument where I grew up whether it was Blackhawks or it was Eagles. So, okay, rivalries die hard. What I want to talk to you a little bit about today is number one, at South Page, we went from 41 students to 22 students this year. And we now are sending our students to Clarinda for part of the day because we cannot meet, offer, and teach. We had a number of citations last year from the department because of that. We offered the class, but we didn't have a kid that could take the class, okay? We cannot find a retired teacher anymore that wants to come and teach for us as well. As all of you know, there's a teacher shortage. So the offer and teach part of this conversation is difficult in small numbers. How will this affect Sidney schools? Okay? If you grant Hamburg back a high school and we lose the 37 students, it's a $250,000 hit for us.
We don't care.
Okay? For us, at $50,000 a teacher, that's 5 teachers. So we potentially will have to RIF. Those are 5 community members that we may not have. And those are some students of those community members that may not be with us anymore. Okay? So that is the part of this that is difficult for us. The second part is that back when there wasn't a high school for these students from Hamburg to go, we were the neighbor that stepped up and helped out. We purchased portable classrooms, we added staff and technology to make that work. And I think if you ask the vast majority of the students, this has been a very good thing for both communities, okay? My final thoughts are pretty simple, okay? I hope this board does not negatively impact Sidney Community Schools with this decision, okay? I just gave you some round numbers, some quick numbers that are easily followed. We should not be negatively impacted as a community, as a school, and our taxpayers. We just passed a $10 million bond referendum, okay, to add on to our CTE and expand programs. We're the first small school IGI program next year, okay? That was something that's obviously going to benefit all of our students, okay? We are going to have a mental counselor coming in and helping with students that can't afford to have that work be done because they don't have insurance. These are just many things that we've added since I've been there and before to try and make this a very good situation for not only our community, but the community's kids as well. So again, please do not negatively affect us as a school district with your decision today.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. So I guess you all know me. For those of you in the room who have not met me, my name is Amy Williamson. I'm the chief for the School Improvement Bureau here at the department.
My name is Eric Heitz. I'm also with the Department of Education, and I'm the administrative consultant in the School Improvement Bureau.
We want to just say a few limited comments about Hamburg prior to turning it over to the superintendent, Mike Falls, to speak with you. And it's by way of explaining why Hamburg needs to come to the state board to ask for a reinstatement of their high school at all. Not all of you as state board members were on the state board when Hamburg and their former neighboring district, Farragut, went through a phase 2 process and had conditional accreditation, and then Farragut was dissolved, and so we thought some history on that could be helpful in making your decision today. So in June of 2014, the state board then ordered a phase 2 visit to both Hamburg and Farragut. At the time, Hamburg was sending their high school students over to Farragut, and Farragut was sending their middle school students to Hamburg, and so they were doing some sharing. The results of their conditional accreditation that came out of that phase 2 visit was a year-long corrective action plan. And then the Farragut High School, actually the Farragut district was dissolved, which meant that the high school went away. And that happened in July of 2016. After that, Hamburg began sending their high school students to Sydney because they did not have a high school. Hamburg had a high school building in Hamburg. They were specifically barred from reopening that building during circumstances because of ADA accessibility issues. Now, they're not proposing to reopen that building in this circumstance, but they must have permission from the state board to reopen a high school at all, because the high school was lost as a result of the conditional accreditation and involuntary dissolution of their whole grade sharing partner. So because their local board relinquished some authority in their agreement with the state board at that time, back in 2016, that is why they need to come back to the state board now and ask to be able to get back their high school. So just wanted to be really clear about that. Eric, did you have any items that you wanted to add about Hamburg and history or status before we turn it over to Mike?
The only other item I wanted to add is last March, the Hamburg board was here, along with Mike Wells, their superintendent, to talk about a superintendent. At that point, one of the things that we talked about was the whole idea that the community was going through a flood. We extended our support for them, and we weren't sure how that flood might affect their enrollment. We do have the certified enrollment now, and I'm just gonna give you the certified enrollment. They saw a decrease of 28 students.
So, if they are granted a high school, those students could still all open roll out from Hamburg.
Yes, even if Hamburg does open a high school, it's not guaranteed that kids will not choose to open enroll elsewhere by the open enrollment deadline.
But they would not, the relationship with the current high school would be null and void. So then the students would either become Hamburg or open enroll back to where they are.
Exactly, and that tuition agreement with Sydney ends this year.
Okay.
And the problem that the Hamburg was dissolved was because of what again?
Hamburg was not dissolved, Farragut was dissolved.
Farragut.
Hamburg and Farragut were full grade sharing. Hamburg and Farragut both had significant problems with offer and teach, other compliance requirements, things that you have seen come before this board. So a list that was quite long. They had issues correcting those in a timely fashion. And so the board at that time put them on a corrective action plan. And the Farragut at the time had significant issues with finances as well. So they had a large amount of money that they had gone to the SBRC requesting relief for, I believe it was 4 years in a row. I'm looking at Tom, just
Yeah,
if he recalls.
at least 3.
It was at least
Both
3.
districts had overspent.
Yeah, so both districts had overspent. I believe Farragut's was 3 or 4 years in a row. Hamburg managed to correct many of their non-compliance issues and agreed to not reopen that high school building that had ADA issues. And Farragut had significant problems recorrecting their issues, and the financial problems were a barrier as well. And so the state board voted to dissolve Farragut and to reinstate full accreditation for Hamburg.
But Kim, that was before you were here, so you didn't miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah, but I just couldn't understand clearly
Yeah.
not how we know.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
Since then, has Hamburg had any compliance issues, like offering e drinking since?
Yeah, great question. So do you wanna talk about your recent visit?
Sure, there was 4 of us that went down for a visit, in December. And they, as far as offer teach, they won't have any offer teach issues, cause that's just grade 9 through 12, and they didn't offer that, they same to Sydney. The only issue was they did not have a certified tag teacher.
Talented.
Teacher, so, that was the main issue.
So they had somebody teaching it that wasn't certified.
Right.
Well, the,
So they just need to fix that and then.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mike, clarify.
just, so we share with Essex. If you check our beds, we share a tag teacher with Essex. The website had a teacher listed as tag. She helps with the program, but she's not in charge of it. So that's, I mean, it's a technical thing, but yes, they wrote us up on that. But we do have a tag teacher certified.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us. Do you
How-
mean that?
how were the roads?
Yeah.
Oh, this is for pass out.
Yes.
Yeah, I hope the roads weren't too bad getting there.
Actually, it was really nice. We were shocked. We thought it was
Oh,
gonna be a
that's
long
good,
drive.
yeah.
but it Wasn't bad.
You can just- Thank you. Oh, sorry. Brian has one.
Okay, so my name is Mike Wells. I'm the superintendent of schools at Hamburg and Essex. And today with me I have,
Hi, I'm Kevin Shannon, the school president at Hamburg.
and Kevin's our new board president. Dave Mincer in the past has come to most of these meetings, so we welcome Kevin and, yeah, the easy honor.
Are you a new board member or just a?
I've been on the board for just a little over a year now. I filled out a previous term and then the previous year.
So a couple issues that, and I hope that you'll ask questions as I work through this, and I'll try not to be too boring. I know I have approximately 20 minutes to speak, so thank you for that. The issue at hand for us isn't just about Hamburg. It's really about rural schools in Iowa. And we have many opportunities through online learning and other sharing opportunities that the state has afforded schools to have a different model of education. So we hope when we look at this, we're seeing a real urbanization of our state. Small towns are having to close because everything goes to the city, and the same is true with education. And I come before you, Tim Hood is a friend of mine. We've been friends for 20 years, and I have nothing against Sydney schools. And we appreciate them being partners with us and helping us when we needed that help. And this isn't about Sydney at all. And I just want to make that clear. We don't want our decision made on what's best for Shenandoah or Sydney or anybody that might be impacted by this decision. That wouldn't be fair to our children. Last year's visit, we had flood issues. And it was the worst flood ever in the history of our town. We did lose students. Since then, the levee has been or is being rebuilt, and we regrouped. We are down on our students, but as you see when we get to the financial piece, we're in the best financial position Hamburg has ever been in. And so we want you to take that into consideration as well. Currently, we operate a pre-K-8 school district, and we share tuition our high school students to Sydney. A few of our students open enrolled at Shenandoah, to Essex, and to FM, Fremont Mills. So we do have a few kids going there. The per pupil cost, we send our state funds to Sydney on their head count. So we do get a little money, we keep a little bit of money by sending our kids there. But overall, most of our kids go to Sydney, and again, we're happy that they're willing to be our partners. When Farragut and Hamburg separated and Farragut dissolved, at that time, Hamburg could have brought the high school back. The only reason Hamburg didn't bring the high school back was the building was not handicap accessible. And the building we're currently in did not have the programs to have CTE. So at that time, the board elected not to bring it back until we could get a facility that was adequate. And as we have moved forward, we now have a science lab, a chemistry lab that's better than any in the conference. We have a new CTE building. We have a greenhouse. We have a new consumer science room. So now, currently, our building does meet all the CTE requirements that would allow us to have a great high school. And so we've corrected those. And the reason we corrected those was so we could bring our high school back. We didn't build a chemistry lab for middle school. And that was always our intent. When we're financially sound and we have a facility that can meet the needs of children, to ask for our high school back. So that is our intent. Currently, Hamburg's high school students, again, are sent to Sydney. And for us, we send per pupil cost to Sydney based on their head count. And there's about $100 difference. So we send 37 students to them, $3,700 would stay with us from our head count. We provide all the transportation to and from school for those students. We do not receive any money for that, zero. It costs us approximately $30,000 a year to transport those students. And we owe that to our kids. We can't expect, we're one of the poorest districts in Iowa. We have to get our kids to school wherever they go. So we're not crying about that. But that is a big cost to our district. So transportation is important. Continuing to share with Sydney will put us in a negative financial position. All but $3,700 goes to them, and we provide transportation, and we pay student fees. The student fees are $30 a student. It's not a huge amount of money, but you can see that financially that won't work. Eventually that will have a negative impact on our spending authority. Now, we met with Sydney at the beginning of the year, and Ms. Boyd, who's unable to be here today from the Department of Education, was at that meeting. We asked and reached out to Sydney to consolidate our whole grade share. If you want to consolidate or you want a whole grade share, this conversation can be over. And their response was, at this time, we do not wish to whole grade share or consolidate with you. So where does that leave Hamburg? Where does that leave us? We have Shenandoah on one side we can tuition with. We have Sydney on one side we can tuition with. Then we have the state of Nebraska, and we have Missouri. So we have two possible tuition partners. And again, I have nothing against Sydney. They're not interested in consolidating. If they were interested in that, we wouldn't have to ask for our high school back. But to our kids and being able to control education and have a voice in our high school education, how do we do that if we don't have a high school? We send our kids to Sydney, we have no voice in that process. And so that is a big reason we're sitting here today. Because we want to be treated as an equal. And we want to have a voice in what our kids learn. And the program, we get to talk briefly about programming. You're going to see we have a really unique program. And for our kids, traditional education isn't the answer for them. So we ask that you keep that in mind. In Iowa's educational process, we have a very long history before recent times of being a local control state. That has become such a myth in our state. There is no such thing as local control. This is a local control issue. We should look at three things. Financially, can Hamburg do this? Do they have the money? Which we're going to show you we can. Can they meet accreditation? Not only can we meet it, we can exceed it. Can we offer the kind of programs kids need and technical programs? We can do that. Those should be the three things we look at. Finances are the big thing. And if we can do those, then it should be left up to the people who are elected to make those decisions, our local school board. And so we believe, and we may be wrong, but we believe this is a local decision. And it should be left up to our board to make that decision. And finally, poverty-stricken students are protected by the Constitution. Equal protection for all kids. Just because we're in southwest Iowa and we're rural and we're poor, our kids should not be at a disadvantage. We shouldn't have an undue burden. And by having to ship our kids over to a school where we have almost no boys, that is an undue burden upon our kids and upon our community. And it is a protected act. So we ask that you look at the legal, I know you're a college professor, so you might be able to tear up that argument. But, that would be one of our arguments. And then, lastly, we have an opportunity as a state board to develop a new model of education for Iowa. All the schools don't have to be 3,000 kids. We don't have to ship our kids out of here. If they want to go to Sydney or Shenandoah or anywhere else, there's open enrollment. Maybe none of them will even come back. Maybe they all stay where they're at, but then they would have more of a choice. So this unique model can combine all the things the legislators have given us. Online education. We can use telecommunication to show and have real teachers teaching part days in our school and traveling back and forth between Essex and Hamburg to provide a curriculum that's as good as our neighboring districts, if not better. So we ask that you consider a different model, a model that can work for very small schools. And if schools don't have, if communities don't have schools, they're dying. We have 1,200 people in Hamburg. That is plenty to support a school system if given the opportunity. And we know early on it's going to be a very small number of students. Year one's probably 25 students because we don't anticipate those Sydney kids coming back. Just with the kids we have, the kids who homeschool, the kids who refuse to go to regular school, and the kids we have currently, 25 students, not big. But we will be a school of 60 to 65, and there are a lot of schools in Iowa that are in that range. So we ask that you consider that as well. Also, it allows you to build two strong school systems. Essex is a very small school. Hamburg certified enrollment is what Essex is. Essex has a K-12 school. If we share staff, that per pupil cost can go to help subsidize the cost of their staff. So you actually help two schools become stronger. Because we're together, we can offer more curriculum. We can have a full-time VOAG teacher. We can have a consumer science teacher full-time. We can have more than one foreign language. So it allows us to be much stronger. So quickly, I'll go over course offerings and how we would accomplish this.
One quick, what's your certified enrollment?
Our certified enrollment is 228. 199 this year, we're down 28.
And then you said something about, so you're thinking maybe you'll have 25 in high school initially?
We will have, on the early surveys, we will actually have 25 students over 4 grades, so we would have students in every grade so we could do teach and offer and teach. Now, we don't know the kids coming, the other kids, that's not counting the Sydney kids.
The 199 is not counted.
The 25 students we have in our school are not counting the kids who currently go to school in Sydney, because we don't know what they would do. We don't think any juniors and seniors would come back, so it would just be a sophomore group.
So I'm looking at the map here. So Hamburg to Essex, looks like it's almost twice as far as it is to Sydney.
Yes, sir.
And so, I guess, let's just cut to the chase. Can I ask Sydney, like, what has been the, why no whole grade sharing? Why no consolidation?
If I can answer the meeting that night, we were talking about trying to extend the tuition agreement, okay? And it's come down to transportation, okay? That's been the issue with it. That has been in place for how long, Dr. Rose? 3 years, at least?
Yes.
So we proposed just continuing what we were doing, okay? Then they threw out, what about consolidation? We had no idea we were gonna be talking about that night. And our board said, we can't answer that question right now. We think that's probably a hard sell for us to talk about consolidation right now.
So it wasn't a good time to know, it just, you weren't prepared for the conversation.
We're prepared for the conversation, and again, our community, I'm not sure will be ready for that. So that was the answer we gave that night.
And versus us arguing about what was said, just check with Janet Boyd, she was in the meeting. And I think she'll verify what I said.
Wouldn't it be worth just asking your community? Because the thing about the students, you know, how many miles is Essex from Hamburg?
Now, you're not looking at Hamburg kids going to Essex. You're looking at Essex staff going to an AB day with staff moving to Hamburg.
So the
Staff
students
moving.
don't have to drive
Yeah,
to
correct,
Essex.
correct.
So the teachers will have to drive. as
Yes,
well.
ma'am. And telecommute. We don't need every single day for the teachers to actually go there because there are methods in technology we can use. But the teachers you can't teach physics without the teacher being there. So we're looking at a combination model, very different model.
Okay, so my original question, the superintendent from Sydney, has a question been posed to the community to share with Hamburg?
After that meeting, like I said, we're in the process of trying to pass $10 million bond issue. I didn't think consolidation was
So that's-
probably something to bring up at that point, so we did not.
So we don't know. We don't know if the community would, we don't
Correct.
know.
So you can see the online courses that have been approved by the state of Iowa.
Which page are you referencing?
Page 9. There's a chart of online courses that are available, so that could be part of your curriculum. Underneath that, we have in-person teaching by licensed, already certified staff identified, which is page 10. Page 11. More online advanced placement, honors, and foreign language. Spanish, we can provide. We have a K-6 program at Hamburg, so we'd have K-12 Spanish, but there would be French, German, and other languages available via the avenue the state has approved, which is online learning. And then in-person continues on page 12, which would include an ag teacher and a woods teacher. Page 13 would be business, which is already in place at Essex. Consumer science, which is a Hamburg employee. Art, which is currently shared with Red Oak, but in February we'll approve a contract with Essex for a full-time art teacher that will stay in Essex. And then music. And then the biggest part of our plan really is the career academies, which is on page 14. In Southwest Iowa, there are no regional career academies. We're proposing that if Hamburg becomes a high school, that Hamburg, Essex, and another school we're working with could come together and have a regional academy, all three very small schools, to provide more curriculum. The governor has been pushing. She comes down to Hamburg and helps us with the flood issue, and this is the exact thing the governor of Iowa is pushing, that every kid that graduates from Hamburg would have a certificate, a diploma, or an AA degree in a trade, even if you're going to a 4-year school. And we've worked with Iowa Western. We have a letter of support, and they will do this for us next year. And I know that was one of our discussions last time we met, that we didn't have an agreement with them. This time we do. Proposed schedule, I just put on page 17 what Essex's current live classes are. So you can see that we have a certified staff available. We do not have to go out and find certified people. We have them all in place.
So you would just flip the Essex staff half-time to Hamburg?
And I will say, not all of them, because we have some teachers in Hamburg that are 7-12.
You would get what you need from
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And then, sorry, I'm trying to hurry. Page 21 is career academies. So what would they look like? Page 21 is a tech academy. We're very blessed that our business manager worked at Iowa Western and ran their tech program. So we can offer a tech academy without hiring any new people. And he's already a recognized Iowa Western professor. So we'd offer a tech academy. And not just for our school, for area schools. Marine biology. People laugh when we tell people, we certify kids in scuba diving. We do that now, both at Essex and Hamburg. Underwater welders make $500 an hour. It's a real career. So marine biology is already in place. Culinary arts will run an Iron Chef program where they'll get college credit through Iowa Western, and that's page 25, as well as college credits. The Iron Chef program will make our meals at our school. Everything from scratch, family-style meals, no preservatives, made by our kids. So an Iron Chef program will help us in other areas of our school as well. Health occupations, Essex is starting this next month, a CNA program. So a health careers, Great Hospital out of Hamburg will assist us in that program. Construction trades, Hamburg is currently building a house. We're doing with K-8 kids, right in our shop. And the house is going right across the street from the school to be given to a flood family. Essex, we bought a lot across from their school for the construction trades next semester. So we have already these programs started, but we're not getting extra funding because you have to have 3 schools to get that money in a regional academy. So if we do a regional academy, it helps Essex, it helps Hamburg, and it helps another school if they come on board. We also have Shenandoah and Clarinda, which are larger schools, that would be invited to be part of it. One of the things for us is the progressive education. And especially Janet Boyd, Eric, they've been down to our school. You have the first farm school in Iowa is Hamburg. We developed it in 2016. We have had visitors from all over the country come see this, where kids do chores 3 times a day. They raise animals, they collect eggs, they give them to old people. It's a really awesome program. How many programs do we have that we actually teach kids to get off their butt and work? Farm school does that, and they love it. You can take what you learn in the classroom and actually implement it. Every building out there is built by our kids. Every one of them. The picket fence, 3 attempts to get that thing straight. Okay, there's great lessons there. Students learn marketing as well. An high school ag program would take that farm school to a whole new level. Makerspace. We have a really robust makerspace program, which we'll talk about shortly, where kids can earn money and put in a 529 college account. Because there's opportunities for them to say, if you're not lazy and you want to make money, here are the machines you need to do that. And if you're lazy or you just want to make things for yourself, if you're selfish, then just go do the things you want for yourself. So the Makerspace program. We have a bilingual program. And right now it is a K-6 elementary program in Hamburg. We want a true bilingual program because we are mostly a white school, which is a huge disadvantage for our kids when they get out in the real world. If we are biliterate people, and we can be that in Hamburg, it makes us and our kids more valuable in the workforce. We have marine biology, which we discussed, and then other considerations. You know, the big thing for our kids, our pre-8 kids come out of our school accustomed to hands-on learning. Very unique. They love school. I've never been around kids more passionate about school. And then they go into a more traditional setting, which is hard for them. Our kids do struggle. A lot of these kids are not college bound. They're going to be great welders. They're going to be great electricians. But what's that opportunity right now for them? It doesn't exist. And we want to provide career academies. Even if you're going to a 4-year college, let's do a career academy and then go to a 4-year college. You'll have these skills to fall back on. And I'm not going to touch on farm school. I know I'm almost out of time. There's some pictures. Makerspace program I'd like to spend just a minute on. These are actual programs. And we invited the state, and Janet and Eric, I believe Eric, came down and seen firsthand this program. So if you have some questions, you can ask him. These kids learn to hand embroider. They choose one of these programs every 9 weeks. We do our reading block the rest of Friday, because we get out at 1:30 because we do PD on Friday afternoons. They spend designing, creating, and making whatever they dream of. And one of those programs is an embroidery program. They hand stitch embroidery, and then they learn to use technology, and they use our electronic 16 needle embroidery machine. Kindergarten on up can make amazing things. Guess what? We have companies calling us, hey, can you make us some polo shirts? Yeah, let me assign a kid to that. Here's a 3rd grade girl. She's going to design some stuff for you and send it to you, and then you can place your order with her. And then we bring the shirts to them and say, are these good enough? Yeah, they're good enough. Then pay us. The kid pays the school for the materials. The rest of the money is hers to go in a 529 college account. No one else is doing that. Our staff has thought of that. Quilting, we hand quilt. We bring a lot of community people in, and they make their own quilts in school. CNC. Tomorrow morning, some of these girls, actually those girls, will be going to Plea Corporation in Shenandoah to receive $20,000. They went there and presented, and the machines that we have in our school that these kids operate, our CNC machine, is the exact machine Plea Corporation uses with 4-year engineers. You know how floored they were when they said, oh, this machine is, and our kid could say, you use Corel Draw on that, don't you? Yeah. And our kids knew the program and know how to operate this machine, and they're 8th graders. So CNC and laser, they make all kinds of mugs and sell them signs. We have a metals, we have crafting, I'm sorry, I'm shooting up. Woodworking, our kids are people who can use their hands and make things. We have culinary arts, cooking for our young kids, pottery for kids who are artistic, screen printing. We don't buy our t-shirts, we make them. The shirts they're wearing, some of them are made by our kids. They know how to silk screen, we don't buy anything. If you break your Barbie doll, you fix it. How do we do that? Figure it out. We have 3D printers. A leg falls off, fix it. Design it. So screen printing. And then this year we had a really weird, I think one of our kids did taxidermy this year. And is that this might be your fish in here. We had a kids, when we survey our kids, I'd really like to learn how to put a fish, mount a fish. So we found a gentleman in our class that can do that. And he was one of the students in there. They can go to a pond, catch the crappie, measure it, weigh it, and then mount it. And maybe that isn't what some people would call real learning, but the skills that child learned was amazing. Bookmaking, TV recording, print shop. The print shop made these. These are made by our kids. We have an amazing print shop. And then we're building a house with K-8 kids right now in our school. And our print shop, you can see the quote, Steve Jobs, you cannot mandate productivity. You must provide the tools to let people become their best. And these programs really do that. And we don't want to give up those opportunities for our secondary high school students. The last piece, and then I'll take questions because we'll make time out, is the last chart is our finances. This is the healthiest Hamburg Schools has ever been. Look at our unspent balance. At the end of FY18, 1.4 million. We were negative before we started these programs. We are financially sound. We can afford to have a high school. The model we have right now, we're going to send more money out to Sydney than we bring in, guaranteed. When we control these programs and we work with Essex, I can control how much money goes to Essex. They can't get all the headcount because we go broke, but we both can benefit. And I know this is a different model than you're used to, and no matter what you vote, we really appreciate that you were allowed us to come and you listened to us. I'll answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
Didn't we have a situation with somebody that was doing like a field trip or something, and they're putting money away into accounts? If I recall, I'm just curious because I hear about this account stuff being brought up and how they're putting it into kids' accounts. But I thought we had a situation where there was like a field trip or something.
There was a situation with how one school district was operating a student activity fund.
Okay.
And they specifically asked about it, and so we provided some guidance and worked with the school to ensure they brought it into alignment with the department's guidance on student activity fund. Yes, that was not a board matter. I did bring it to the board because you received several letters. It got a lot of press attention, so there was that happening.
Is this arrangement in line with?
I don't believe we've examined this specifically. The district nor any stakeholders have brought this to us, but Tom, have we had any questions about the student activity fund usage? Okay.
Is this?
And I don't know that it's in their student activity fund. I don't.
Do you want to speak to how these are
much
funded, Mike?
Sure. We have Gloria Martin Foundation. They give
Okay.
us $33,000 grant money. But the way it works, if a kid makes 10 mugs, beer mugs, and sells them with Hamburg on it, they reimburse the school $1 for every mug because that's what we pay. Then everything after that is profit to the kid who can put in their account.
For some reason, I thought St. Ansgar Schools was looking at something like this in their industrial program, and they couldn't do that. But I don't know. I'm just.
You have
I just
point
know that
center
this is-
sales. I mean,
I'd have to look at the details behind the arrangement.
Amy, does this proposal meet all the state's educational requirements to be a high school?
As far as we can tell, yes. I mean, they're not doing some of it yet. And so we would go visit and follow up after they actually started doing it and make sure that it's meeting all the requirements. But as written, we don't see anything that would not meet the requirements for compliance with, offering and teaching.
The curriculum? Yeah, then follow up question.
Well, I was just going to ask, the regional academies aren't in place. So based on what you presented, if they don't come to fruition, then this would not be.
Oh, it still would.
As long, they could go without the specific regional academy and get the CTE in some other way. It depends on how it's actually connected, right? And so as written, it would work. And they could ensure that the kids are having the opportunities in a different way when it's actually enacted as well.
So then you would just examine it like you would any other school that's,
We would.
and then you would cite them if they were not
If
doing
it's not in
something?
place, then there'll be citations and corrective actions.
Is the program different, the career academy is different than what they're getting at Sydney?
I do not, yes?
So I guess that's the question too, so welding got brought up.
We have
You
welding
have welding.
programs.
You do have
so-
welding.
And yes, culinary arts. and-
Yep, we have those
Okay.
already.
Do you have construction trades?
One we're working on.
There was a comment made, and I saw one of the students looked at potentially someone else, and I want to tie it into curriculum. You made a comment that these students won't go to college.
No, no. Some of our students are more than likely not college bound for their own, because they're not interested. They don't like sit down learning, they like
It's a big
hands-on.
statement, it's a big
Yeah.
statement, it's a big statement. The question I have is, for tracking purposes, the curriculum here, will they also be college bound? I don't want
Mhm.
them just to have one track, say the
Yes.
trades, I want them to have options. So will this curriculum allow them to, be college bound?
You're directing that to me?
Yeah.
I think it's better directed to the superintendent.
Well, here's we want every kid to go to college, whether it's a tech school or a four-year school. They have the same requirements, whether they're gonna go to a tech school or no secondary education. They still have to take the 3 years of math, 4 years of language arts. How that looks, for some of our students, they want construction math. That's the kind of math I want, because I don't have an interest right now. But they'll all have a skill level to go to a secondary education if they want to pass high school post-secondary.
Okay, so I wanna make sure it's very clear to me. So after they finish they got a diploma from Hamburg following this curriculum,
Yes, ma'am.
will they meet all of the basic requirements to go to college?
Yes, ma'am.
That's the key. I want them to have options.
Yes, ma'am. They would actually have more options. If you look at that schedule right there, that is Essex's entire curriculum. Then you add everything else to it. It provides more options. I would argue it provides more options than any school in Southwest Iowa.
I got a feeling, I sense that there is an if in here, and what is the if? I don't know, are we sure that, I feel like, do we have to do more homework to answer that question? Or is it because it's not active yet? I feel like, because it's not active, okay. Like say if one of these teachers are not able to fulfill it, then
Okay.
it's all dependent upon.
Well, that schedule is not depending on anything. I'm the superintendent of both schools, and duties are assigned. And their staff is willing to help because they also need help. So, I mean, a teacher could leave, but that's pretty sad.
So what's plan B? That's the key. Like,
Plan
what's
B if we
plan
don't
B?
get the high school?
No, plan B if you can't get the math teacher. The math teacher goes and somewhere, what happens if, because we're hearing from other districts that they don't have a certain teacher to fill even sitting, to say someone offer teach.
Mhm.
So say you can't fill the offer teach, what's plan B? That's the key.
Mhm. So, first of all, for year one, I'm very, very confident we'll have everyone. The math teacher is a retired person that came out. We're interviewing a math teacher, but he will come back if we don't get somebody. We have a guidance counselor, we're gonna offer a contract next month, a music teacher, an art teacher. But it's just like any other school. We can't sit here today, nor could Sydney, nor could Shenandoah sit here and say, I guarantee we're gonna have all of our staff in place at the start of school, because people do leave. But what happens if we don't meet accreditation? And that's the same for every school, and Amy probably could.
Yeah, I think maybe the bigger if for all small schools when it comes to offer and teach isn't, of course, staffing is a big issue. It's always if you have kids to take the classes. So lots of schools can offer the classes, but it's the teaching issue. You're not teaching it if someone's not taking it, and you have to have the ability to offer it, but also the interest and the bodies to take it. And so when enrollment gets really low, that always worries districts because they want to be able to have the kids to take it. And so when Superintendent Hood spoke, and Mike has spoken about this, you have small communities like Essex and South Page who are looking at, we can offer this course, but we don't have a single student who's willing to take it. And you've heard that from Diagonal as well, and they're on your agenda later today.
I have a question, Mike, on the timeline. Let's say we take action today, one way or the other. Let's say we grant it. I assume you're ready to put it together for next year.
Yes, sir.
What if we delay it till March?
It will be more difficult because we have to get contracts in place. We got to actually, the problem that holds us always up, and it was a question last time I was here.
Yep.
Well, why don't you have this teacher on contract? I'm not getting offered contract because
Right.
we need to move on contracts, and because we're a small school, those people that we interviewed and we're ready to move on, they're not gonna be there in a month. Because other schools, we're ahead of the hiring process right now.
Right.
If we don't get them under contract by February, the big schools will take them. So it's kind of been urgent.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I mean, this is just a lot of information,
Yes, sir.
and it's a big decision.
There's something I feel is missing, and that's projected enrollment.
You know,
I mean, saying that you think you might have 25,
we're confident of the 25 number with our current kids and kids who are homeschooled. But the town is gonna be building houses. That's a slow process. I think 200 is the number we're gonna be at, certified enrollment, for the next 4 or 5 years. 5 houses are being built right now in Hamburg. That's not a ton of people. We've always been a small district. We've always been in the 200s. So I don't think that's gonna change much. I think one thing will happen is more kids will come home. We'll lose less kids. We'll lose less families. People move out of our community because we don't have a high school. We're gonna send our kids to Sydney, let's just buy a house in Sydney and live there. And that is, or Shenandoah. And that's hurting our community.
What was your population before?
1,200, we're probably about just over 1,000 now. And I don't have, that's not inaccurate.
I'm
11, Mike. So maybe I missed this. You were not allowed to use the old high school, but I haven't seen any mention of a new building.
Yes, sir.
So where is this high school going to be housed?
So we have enough space in our current building with those additions we've done to house the high school for several years. Our plan would be that we would ask for a certificate of need, which is another requirement of small schools, to use our penny sales tax to build a small addition over the next few years. But we have enough room in our building now with those additions to house, because we're looking at 25 to 40 kids first couple years.
So you've added to the middle school.
Correct. The elementary is, yes, sir.
At their element.
Mhm.
Your facility. So what is the condition of the former high school?
It's sold. In poor condition. I'm glad it's sold.
you said that you spend currently $30,000 to send, transport students to Sydney. Is that picking kids up at their home and taking them to Sydney? Or is that picking them up at Sydney, or at, a central spot in Hamburg and then taking them to Sydney?
So it varies. Some kids we pick up, the country kids we'll pick up. Some kids just come to the school.
And how much do you estimate to save on that 30,000 by not transporting to Sydney?
Probably more than half. But here's a dilemma for our school. To be fair, what about the kids who say, I want to stay in Sydney? Well, an easy way to do it is to screw them over and say, we're not transporting you, which forces them. We don't want to do that. If you approve this, we will run transportation for free next year to Sydney and provide those kids get there.
So you're not saving any money next year on this?
We would not. But that's, for us, that's the only fair way to do it. We don't want to.
How long would you continue?
You know, I don't want to speak for the board,
Right.
but I would think at least 1 year. By then, those kids would be juniors and have licenses.
A lot of pieces to the puzzle.
it's a big decision for our community. This is one of those things that will help us rebuild, and we feel strongly about it. And again, no matter what your decision, we appreciate you listening to us.
So you have a letter of intent from Iowa Western?
Yes, sir.
To provide what you
I
placed in
can-
the presentation?
I can email that to Director Weiss.
I think very creative. I think you thought outside the box. We continue to deal with Diagonal School District, and I just have this fear of sustainability with this program. Is kind of what and then all of a sudden in a couple of years we're sitting here and we're kind of going through what we're going through with Diagonal. I wish that, maybe Sydney could have a deeper conversation about the consolidation aspect of this, and I think there's strength in numbers. I think you guys would both benefit from coming together and working together on some things. And I really do worry about the sustainability of this plan, as creative as it is. Numbers is the game.
One of the pieces with Diagonal, this is the model that would work at Diagonal, right? I mean, this is a model that could work at Diagonal as well and keep small schools open.
And I think one of the problems with Diagonal, and I think you'll find too, is just finding, and for right now, maybe you can find all the staff to do this, but in the future, finding those people, it's getting harder and harder to get into our smaller districts. And I also feel your pain for logistically. You guys are in a horrible location geographically in terms of the borders. I mean, I grew up in Riceville. We're a Minnesota bordered community. We have no options. Like, it's horrible for us as a small district. I graduated 36 kids in my class. And, at the end of the day, that border, that imaginary line prevents us from working closer with that district that's probably our best option.
I think the bigger concern is, will there be enough kids to take classes that you offer, that you will actually be able to teach? That's a guess at this point, I guess, but.
It always has to start somewhere.
That raises a question. Some of these classes that are most difficult to get kids to sign up for, are any of the students that are currently going to Sydney, taking like chemistry, physics, those classes that are traditionally hard in the smaller school districts to get students to go to?
There would be kids in Sydney taking those, yes. Currently.
I mean, from your students who are going to Sydney.
I can only assume, yes, sir.
I thought it was interesting that you've got a tuition agreement with them, not a sharing agreement. I mean, I sat on the board and we had 2 5-year whole grade sharing agreements. And with that, there was board A, there was board B, and then there was a joint board.
Yes, sir.
And so we did give some input. It was the one board that had the high school made the decisions, and the one that had the middle school made the decisions, but there was a joint board between that helped. And that operated for 10 years.
Yes, sir.
I find it a little interesting. I can see where you're a little uncomfortable with, they get to make all the decisions and you just send the money. I don't have a solution, I'm just saying that's different than.
Well, we don't have any options.
Yeah. I asked Ryan if, we don't have a board meeting in February, but we could. I'm sympathetic to your, if we till, and our March meeting is barely in March, it's the last week of March, how long it is. That would be a long time, but I'm just speaking to myself, this is probably the biggest decision I'm setting on in 6 years.
You are a really wise man, thank you.
What will change your mind, or what will make your mind?
I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
to proceed, I'm sympathetic as well. I will move that we grant Hamburg approval to have a high school.
I'll second it for discussion purposes.
So I'll open it up for discussion.
Please, no one call the question.
I would just like to say that, for small school districts, I mean, I think everyone's kind of spoken to this, you know, they do struggle, and we've seen them before our board countless times, and there are so many issues that are reoccurring. So I understand kind of the worries, and I'm sure that you guys have those worries, of course, that, you know, and, you know, after the whole Hamburg Fair thing, I mean, that was heart-wrenching to see that, have to vote for that. I remember students leaving here crying, and we just don't want to be here again doing that in 5 years, right? So we want to try to kind of, but I guess we don't have a crystal ball, we can't tell the future, but I just think that, I mean, I think that you guys are thinking outside the box, as Josh said, and I think you guys have done a great job of just kind of putting together something that might actually work really well in a small district, and maybe other districts should be looking at something like that, because clearly what they're doing isn't working, so if it all kind of panned out, I think it can be really great. So I just want to say that.
Any further discussion?
So what happens if we approve it, you go ahead and you would visit in a year? When would you visit again?
We can visit whenever the board asks us to visit. The difficulty is your authority over a district, after you've approved that you reinstate a high school, becomes conditional accreditation. And when you accredit or don't accredit an entire district, you can't just take away a high school. So if you open this gate, you can't shut it again.
You can't get them back to where they are.
No, you cannot.
Well, that's a good piece of information.
Any further? Okay, so Jody, do you want to take roll?
Brooke? Aye. Mike Bearden?
No.
Betty?
Aye.
Josh?
No.
Angela?
No.
Mike Nedler?
Yes.
Mike May?
Can we where's David Krieger? Or candidate? Do we have Mike unmuted? I think we heard Mike.
Okay.
Mike?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, I tried to get in for the conversation a little bit, but no, this is my vote.
Okay.
Kimberly?
Please say no. Oh, come on.
Yes.
We don't have Mary Ellen on board, so it's 4-4. So it'd be 4-4, and then the motion would fail.
You need a majority for the motion to proceed.
Oh, come
So
on.
an equally divided board equals no action.
Okay.
Equals no action.
So there would not be a rule to move forward.
Would not.
We haven't addressed the issue.
You've addressed the issue, but you haven't given the authority to proceed. So the motion fails by a tie.
Okay.
Come on.
If the board wanted to propose to do another action, to table or to have a February, that would be a board. Thomas Mays is serving as attorney for the board, just as context for those in the audience today. We just want to make sure legally we have any questions that could come up answered on the front end. If the board wanted to propose another motion or to create a February, would they have the purview to vote on that at this time?
If the board wants to schedule a February meeting to reconvene this discussion, it's within the board's purview.
Could we ask for an action before that February meeting? Could we ask the city superintendent, ask the community if they'd be willing to share?
I don't think you would have the ability to direct their district to do that because they're not before the board today.
That's a long process.
And Mary Ellen was a big supporter last year, so having another member would be good. So,
They not get it.
So I would move that we schedule a February meeting to reconvene this discussion.
I would second that, figure out a date, subject to.
well, if you request a February meeting, for reconsideration of this item, we can work on scheduling a date. I think that would be within
It's within the board's
bounds,
discretion.
board's discretion. And as context, the code allows essentially, for that if timing becomes an issue. So, and in this case, I think there is if that's the road the board would want to go down because of the time between the two meetings.
Ryan?
Yes,
may I
Mike.
interject?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, Amy, I would love to have a recommendation from the department on this. Is this a viable plan? We're making a decision as a 9-member board. I don't think any of us probably have the expertise to make that decision. Our heart's with you. Our heads tell us that maybe this isn't viable, but I don't know that. So I'd love to have a recommendation in February from the department. And I don't know how everybody else feels about that, but tell us, is this a viable month?
Mike, well, I'll let Amy speak to that and I can add to that as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna come closer to the microphone so Mike can hear me. We'd be happy to put together, the way we usually make recommendations on viability is to do what we call a feasibility study. And we'd be happy to compile that and get it to the board and to the district, as soon as possible. It doesn't take all that long. We can work with the finance folks to get it done.
At least summarize the positives or just.
And that's what we would be more inclined to do. I think this really is a board action and not a department action. And
Yes.
so I think it's very important that we are partners to you in your efforts on the facts and supporting your decision making. This is an instance where, because of the circumstances, it being a board action, I think it falls in your court, but we'll support it with any additional information that you need from
I
us.
think that would be.
They will support
our part to, maybe there's something that's, wow, we didn't think of this and that really pushes it, or it really pushes it.
Can we have
Well, I
enrollment?
would like to have your expertise. I'd
Yeah.
love to have your expertise and give us that information that you think you can. We also consider the impact on neighboring school districts. I think that's a consideration too with Sydney and others. How's that going to impact them as well? They can't make long-term plans if we keep bouncing back and forth here.
Yeah, absolutely. So feasibility studies typically take into account enrollment trends, like-size districts, neighboring districts, and then ability to meet requirements like compliance requirements. And so Eric and I will get together right after this meeting and start working on it, okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
And one last thing if I can. Come down. Take a Friday and come down and see for yourself. After you are there, this won't be a question, I guarantee it. Come.
So I think we have a motion and a second. And so we need to and just to clarify, the motion is to convene the state board in February to reconsider the decision on the Hamburg request to open a high school. Did you make the motion?
No.
Is that a correct summary of the motion? Okay. Jody, did you get that?
I would just add as early in February as practical.
Well, and some of that will depend on our ability to put together some of the things that the board has requested in terms of the feasibility around enrollments, surrounding districts, and those things. And then it will also, we'll send out a poll for board members and staff. And I know Amy has some out of the area travel commitments. So we will do our best to get this in as quickly as possible, but you do need to know this is, given all the things that have been asked for and the fact that we're coordinating over a dozen schedules here, we'll do the best we can.
And because of the largeness of the situation, I think it's very important to have 9 board members able
I think we'll, again, we'll.
Please speak me on my phone if not.
This is not face to face.
It is not required to be, you can do, interim meetings, telephonically.
There would have to be a business reason, necessity, inconvenience
Time,
stated in
yeah.
the meeting as part of the minutes. The board would have to make a record about why it's being telephonic.
Okay, so we could potentially look at it should timing, distance, those things preclude, our ability to meet in February.
Does that need to be made now?
No.
No, all we need to know now, so that it's in the record, is an action on the motion, to meet in February to reconsider. Okay, Jody,
Do a roll call vote?
let's just do a roll call vote, just so we have it.
Okay, Brooke?
Aye.
Mike Bearden?
Aye.
Betty?
Aye.
Josh?
No.
Angela?
No.
Mike Nedler?
Yes.
Mike May?
Yes.
Kimberly?
Yes.
The motion passed.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to take too much time.